Chairman Leach, welcome back to the program. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
Governor Abbott asked the legislature to pass 4 things. At the top of the list is school vouchers. The House, of course, has introduced its plan for school vouchers, which would increase the basic allotment for school districts and give teachers a pay raise in order to get vouchers across the finish line. Can something like that pass the Senate?
Well, I think it certainly deserves deliberation. It deserves our focus in the House and in the Senate. This is about the 5.5 million Texas school children and what's best for them. And what's best for them, I believe, and the House believes, is massive historic investments in public education, paying our teachers more, making sure our schools are safe, and also at the same time providing choice to parents and students across the state to go to a private or parochial or homeschool of their choice. Those are things that will impact all 5.5 million Texas school children, and so I believe that the House is going to take it seriously, and I hope the Senate will as well.
Rural Republicans, of course, have stopped this for session after session in Austin. Do you think that they're going to be on board and will agree with this HB 1, this House version?
So House Bill 1 we've been working on a long time under the leadership of Speaker Phelan and the chair of the House Public Education Committee, Brad Buckley, who himself is a rural Republican. Right. We've been very deliberate about listening to Texans, school board members, superintendents, teachers, importantly parents and students themselves, to craft what we believe is a landmark, robust plan, like I said, that benefits all Texas school children, whether they're in urban, suburban, or rural districts. So I do believe that the rural Republicans I'm talking to are open to this plan, and I look forward to it receiving a committee hearing and hopefully a public vote and a public debate on the floor of the Texas House very soon.
There's just 2 weeks left in the session here. Will this get across the finish line?
Well, we're working around the clock to make sure that it does. It's my hope that the governor will expand the call to include public education funding. A large part of that, yes, is teacher raise. It's also investments in school security, making sure our schools are safe. And so in providing the tools and resources to our local educators to really pour into our kids and our families. At the same time, an important part of that, and the Senate has recognized this, is providing choice, options for parents and students across the state. And that's a key part of the plan. The governor has called for that. The Senate has passed it, and it's time for the House to do so as well.
You think there are enough rural Republicans who would vote for this?
I do right now. I think that at the very least, wherever someone is, a legislator is on this, whether they want to vote yes or no, at the very least, the people of Texas deserve a public debate and a public vote. This should not be killed behind closed doors like it has been in past sessions, in past years, for decades. Why don't we have this debate publicly in committee and on the floor of the Texas House and have a public vote on it? I think that's the least we can ask and the least that the voters of Texas, the citizens of Texas expect and deserve.
One of the other things on the governor's call is to end COVID vaccine mandates. You're the co-author of the bill in the House of Representatives to stop letting private companies require their employees to have COVID vaccines to come to work. There was an exchange between you and Rafael Anchia, another member of the House, and he brought up a good point. How will companies under this legislation, if it's passed, how will those companies, private companies, protect medically fragile employees who need to be around people who are vaccinated? Well,
look, I'm proud to author this bill in the House with my friend Senator Mays Middleton in the Senate. It's already passed the Senate and is now in our hands in the House. And look, this is not a debate. This bill is not about what vaccines are good or bad, who should get which vaccines, including the COVID vaccine. This debate is about who should decide. And I believe that that's a very personal medical decision that should be made in consultation with someone's doctor. And I believe that it is wrong, and is fundamentally wrong, and it's a violation of our constitutional rights for an employer, even a private employer, to say to their employees or an applicant for a job that you're fired or you cannot work here unless you get a vaccine. I think that's a patent violation of Texans' right to work. But at the same time, we can still protect employers' ability and their rights, I believe their duties, to keep their employees safe.
How do you do that?
Well, this bill doesn't really affect that. Employers can still make reasonable accommodations in their workplaces to keep their employees, including fragile populations, safe. But at the same time, the people who decide for whatever reason, whether it's religion or conscience, or maybe it's a medical reason that they cannot, that their doctors have recommended that you, Jason, should not get this vaccine, well, you shouldn't be fired by your employer for doing that. And that's what this bill is really all about.
I want to ask you about Defend Texas Liberty PAC. It's one of the major donors to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, to Attorney General Ken Paxton. President Jonathan Stickland of the PAC, former president now, but he met with a white supremacist, made a lot of news a few weeks ago. He has not issued an apology or a statement. The PAC has replaced him as president. Is that enough in your mind to move forward?
No, it's not. And the voters of Texas, particularly Republican primary voters and conservatives, have reason for great concern. When we look at what happened, this isn't just someone that shook hand with a troubling individual in a rope line. This is a 6-hour meeting. A 6-hour meeting. They hosted and harbored Mr. Fuentes. I believe not only was it Jonathan Stickland, I believe that Luke Macias is behind this. I believe that possibly the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, Matt Rinaldi, is behind this. None of them have come out and condemned the meeting in itself and explained why they were there in the building that day, particularly Mr. Stickland and Mr. Rinaldi. But look, Mr. Fuentes is not just a white supremacist. That in and of itself is awful. He's bigoted. He denies the Holocaust. I think he said at some point that Hitler was cool. He has had awful comments about beating up and abusing women. Why? Why would someone who claims to be a conservative, faith, family, and freedom conservative entertain and host and harbor that individual for 6 hours? The people of Texas, Republican primary voters, deserve answers.
Defend Texas Liberty PAC is very influential. What does that say about the state of the party right now?
Well, I'm not sure how influential it is. They've lost a lot of races that they've won. Candidates and elected officials are now returning contributions, not only from Defend Texas Liberty, but from Mr. Stickland himself. I myself returned a $750 contribution that I received from Mr. Stickland several years ago, and decided to dedicate that to the Texas Baptist men who are providing on-the-ground relief in Israel right now, humanitarian aid and efforts. I'm not the only one. There's others who are doing the same. And really what this is about is standing up for what's right and speaking out against what's wrong. You do not entertain and host and meet with someone with those views for 6 hours unless there's something to be gained from you, or unless you're trying to team up with or partner with that person. And like I said, it's very troubling, and the people of Texas, including policymakers, expect and deserve answers.
Speaking of, kind of the state of the party, let me ask it like this. Based on what we saw here, Speaker Phelan drew a line in the sand on the far right a couple of weeks ago. He said that he's done with what he calls the moral rot in the Republican Party. What was the reaction in the legislature to that?
Well, I appreciate our speaker speaking out on this and leading and drawing a line in the sand, and I think moral rot is a good way to describe it. We can disagree on policy. We debate policy. We can even oppose each other in an election, including in a primary election. That's fine. That's the system we live in, and I believe it's the best system in the history of the world. But when there is moral rot, as the speaker said, when there is hate, and when there's bigotry, when there's racism, when there's anti-Semitic views, when there's views talking about abusing and harming and violating women, we ought to speak out against that. It's wrong. And that's what the speaker's done. That's what I've tried to do. That's what Republicans are doing across the state. And I think that voters are overwhelmingly with us on that.
Attorney General Ken Paxton says he wants to clean house after the Senate acquitted him. He wants to clean house specifically on the Republicans who impeached him on corruption charges. You were kind of leading that effort as well. Paxton endorsed a person running against you. How concerned or confident are you going into next March's primary?
Well, look, if my primary opponent and other primary opponents across the state want to shroud themselves and cloak themselves in the support of someone who I believe is not only corrupt, but is a sophisticated criminal, then by all means they can have that. I'm very proud of my record. I'm proud of the record of the House under Speaker Phelan. It's the most conservative legislative session, 2 legislative sessions over the past 2 years, 21 and 23. Yeah. We've passed the strongest heartbeat bill in the nation. We've banned abortion. We've passed constitutional carry. We've passed, I was proud to lead the charge in banning a state income tax. We've passed the largest property tax cut in the history of the state of Texas. We've done a number of things to strengthen election integrity. I'm very proud of our record. We're going to run on our record. We have a lot more to do, but we're going to be very, very honest with the Republican voters, with voters all across the state about what we've done, about what the issues facing Texans are, and I'm going to ignore distractions from people who want to be dishonest about what we've done and what we stand for.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thanks, Jason.